Well, my next guest has soothed hundreds of babies with fevers, given thousands of vaccinations, and managed to ease the worries of countless parents. Dr. Paul Remiliotis has spent over 3 decades as a pediatrician, and now he's swaddled all that wisdom into a book for new parents. It's called Baby Comes Home. The book launch is tonight. Dr. Paul Remiliotis, good morning, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Now, you make the argument in your book that what happens in the first 18 months sets the path for the rest of a child's life. Why are those first 18 months so critical?
Well, aside from what we know in terms of nutrition and so on, there are some very important milestones or developmental processes that are occurring in a child's brain. Let's talk about the brain. The brain, the head grows in the first 2 years of life to 80% of its adult size. So among that thing, on the inside, what's going on is a lot of these wiring is occurring. So the wiring, the sculpting of the brain is what determines a baby's personality, what determines a baby's ability to learn, ability to cope, ability to see, and so on. So we know that the first 18 months of life particularly are what I call a window of opportunity for good and bad. So good is promoting that. And how do you promote that? Obviously, with nutrition and so on, but tender loving care. The science of tender loving care is a term that I've actually coined that actually proves scientifically that there is benefit to the child's developing brain by just hugging the child, consoling the child, not letting the child cry out, not neglecting the child. And we do know that these can have lifelong repercussions. So, for example, if a child is neglected or abused, we know that there are going to be repercussions, behavioral repercussions, mental health repercussions. We also know there are going to be medical repercussions. By a variety of mechanisms, if you interfere with that normal process, the brain will not develop properly and can manifest itself 40, 50 years down the line in chronic disease.
Interesting. What kind of chronic disease?
Oh, heart attacks, metabolic syndromes, and so on. And a recent study from the Toronto Hospital for Sick Children looked at children who were abused and followed them in 40 years later and found that they had higher rates of heart attacks and heart disease as compared to children who are not abused. And we do know that children who are exposed to adverse events around early childhood have higher rates of not only psychological concerns, but also medical concerns. So if we concentrate as a society in the first 27 months of life, 9 months prenatally and 18 months postnatally, support mothers, support kids, support parents to be able to hug their kids, that will translate into actually long-term prosperity, decrease in mental health, which is a big issue, and decrease in chronic disease. So it's a paradigm of chronic disease and mental disease prevention.
It's interesting that you're saying this because I'm just thinking of people I know who are about to adopt. They've had trouble getting pregnant. So if they can't control that, if you're saying hugs are important, they can't control that, yet they're about to bring a little person into their own world. That would be really worrying for somebody.
Well, it would be worrying. However, the other good thing about pediatrics, the babies are resilient. So we don't give up on them. We the more you hug them and the more you can rehabilitate these kids. But what I'm saying is, for the most part, if you can proactively, as much as possible, hug them and give them what they need, it's fine. It's not to say that a 3 or 4 year old child doesn't deserve to be hugged. I'm just saying that as a new parent, this is something that they should be aware about. But obviously, all stages of life are important, and hugging and all that tender loving care is important. But I'm focusing on it because I'm actually telling parents that as part of what they can do for their child, aside from vaccination, proper nutrition routines, and all those other things that are in there, knowing about childhood illnesses, the first 20 pages of my book just concentrates on why it's important just to hug a baby, why tender loving care is important, and sometimes some of the barriers. Parents' work, poverty, and so on. But it doesn't cost much to hug a baby. Everybody can do it. Grandmother can do it. Grandfather can do it. It's a community. Very often, families tell me, I was very poor, but I grew up okay. Why? Because you were lived with 12 cousins and uncles, and you were always stimulated.
My favorite thing that anybody ever said to me over the past year of having a baby is it takes a village, and it truly does.
And this really does.
I wanted to ask you, you've been at this for a long time, 30 years. How much have the questions that parents asked you changed in that 30-year period?
Well, I can tell you, for the newborn period, they're about the same. They're always about routines, feeding, comforting baby, carrying baby, and the common issues. Baby's hair falls out, those are teething and those type of things. Those are the same. As you get older in pediatrics, then we get different things like cyberbullying and obesity and all these other things that we're seeing. But, concentrating on the first couple of years of life is kind of the same thing. It's really the same thing. And whether I get emails, because I get emails from the world, because my website's been online since 1995. I was the first pediatrician in the world online. And so I've been getting questions from the whole world, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere, similar questions, all having to do with routines, nutrition? Am I doing things right? What's normal? What's not? Really, those are the common questions across countries internationally.
Why did you want to write this book? I mean, there are a lot of baby books out there. Believe me, I've got a stack of them. Why did you want to write it?
I wanted to write it because I felt that because I've been dedicated my career to this, I've been doing this for a long time. This means not only practicing pediatrics, but writing about pediatrics. I've written hundreds of articles and through my website and so on and videos. And I really see the panic in parents when they don't understand what's going on. And a simple yes or no, it's normal, don't worry, relaxes them. So I believe that, rather than doing it one-on-one with my patients, which I've been doing for many years, this can be shared and comfort. So what I believe is knowledge is comfort. So I'm trying to sort of promote knowledge as a comforting device that can complement a parent's ability to take care of their kids, really.
I want to ask you something because this is a little bit from a personal experience, but I wonder if you think that there is such thing as too much knowledge. You have this stack of baby books.
Sure.
And in those early days when you don't know day from night, you don't know if you're doing anything wrong, you're consulting the baby books, you've got something in here about head growth. Another book has something about head growth. And they say different things. At the end of the day, it can actually stress you out more.
At the end of the day, information overload, I think, is important. That's an important one, especially today. And you asked me what's different than 20 years ago, and why that's important. A lot of information is out there. There's a lot of competing information, a lot of information that's perhaps not valid. So two things. Number one, I ask parents to find one resource they trust, whether it's mine or somebody else's, I don't care. My book really is not judgmental. I actually use evidence from the American Academy of Pediatrics, all the sort of evidence-based approach. There's no controversies in there. However, they should get one or two reliable sources and use them, and do it proactively, do it beforehand. Read about, prevention, read about some of the common things beforehand, and you'll be surprised that they'll come back to you when baby comes home.
We are running out of time, but I want you to give us one thing in your book that might surprise parents.
Okay. Parents very often are shocked between 4 and 6 months of age. They find hair in their baby's crib, and oh my God, my baby's going to go bald. And that's normal. Hair transitions from baby hair to adult hair between 4 and 6 months of age.
I did not know that. What do you love most about seeing and treating babies?
The fact that they grow so much, and it's never every time you see a baby at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, it's always changing. So the evolution is beautiful. You see a baby that can barely move to an 18-month-old toddler that's talking and playing with you. That's great. The other thing that I love about pediatrics is the resiliency of these babies. Sometimes these babies are quite sick. They come into the hospital, and literally the next day they're running up and down the hall. And that was one of the biggest things the joys that I got out of pediatrics.
Congratulations on your book. It's been a long time in the making, 20 years, you said.
Thank you.
Feel good to have it published.
It really does. Thank you.
That is Dr. Paul Remiliotis, and tonight he launches his new book, Baby Comes Home. It's at the Westin Hotel at 7 p.m. And if you want more details, you can go to drpaul.com.